Welcome to this edition of the Talk of Simsbury. My name is Dominique Avery. If you saw the photos in the opening of today's show, you know that the talk this month is about our Performing Arts Center. Did you know that our summer concerts were the dream of some board members of the Hartford Symphony who thought the extraordinary views of Talcott Mountain and Hubline Tower from the Hartford Simsbury site would make a perfect summer home for their concerts? And they were right. In 1996, it was. Now, 22 years later, those board members, and yes, even the Hartford, are no longer there. But the summer concerts remain. They've moved twice. The kind of events and concerts have expanded, and now they have a beautiful, permanent home. That's largely because a group of energetic Simsbury residents were able to take over the idea of outdoor events and summer concerts and created a board to run them. Today, we're going to talk about the current board members, Board President Dave Ryan, who's lived and been active in Simsbury for 30-something years and is also the current chair of the Zoning Commission, and Linda Schofield, who is a former state representative, a current Board of Finance member, and, not incidentally, the founder of the triathlon. Also is someone is here who's joined us who's new to town, Missy DeNono, an experienced performing arts manager who's been hired to run the facility as its first executive director. Welcome to all three of you. I'm so glad you joined me today to talk about this very important piece of our town tourism and residents' attractions. Dave, it constantly amazes me how much local Simsbury residents, professionals, and volunteers manage to do and accomplish in Simsbury, including and even especially your board. You guys work so hard. But now you've reached out to hire a performing arts specialist, professional, and I wondered if you and Linda can explain how and why you made the decision to hire an executive director and give us a little background before we get to meet Missy.
Well, as a 501c3, we took over the operation of the Performing Arts Center for the town in 2014. Our board, through bootstrapping and working and doing things ourselves, built it up and got ourselves in the position where we needed to grow and move to the next level. We contracted with some outside consulting services through the help of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and we contracted with an industry expert who recommended that we move to an executive director model where we had an employee here and she could begin to pick up the things that the board is doing, and then the board could focus on community engagement and fundraising.
So let's take a step backward just to explain how it came about. So the summer music that started at the Hartford, then it moved to CL&P, and then it moved here because this property became available and the town bought it, right?
Right. The town bought it in, I think, 1999. It was the Baker property, 400 acres. In 2000, there were temporary band shells erected there for the Talcott Mountain Music Festival for a couple of years. And in October of 2004, a group of Simsbury residents got together and raised the money to build a band shell. And they went hell-bent for leather and got the band shell built by May. And in 2005, it opened up, and the town ran it for a few years. And then in 2008, the town put together a town board which ran the facility for several years. But the town felt that it needed to get out of that business. It wasn't something that was easy to do, became easily politicized, and made it just difficult to operate.
And it's not a typical function of a town.
Right, exactly.
Typical function of a town.
Jump in anytime, Linda.
Yeah, so the town hired Webb Associates out of New York, and Webb did a study and said you should get a 501c3 to manage the facility. And that's how the transition came about in 2014, when a group of us that were actually part of that original board started the 501c3. We recruited directors for the 501c3. We negotiated a contract with the town to manage the facility, and then in January 1st, 2014, we took over and started running, and that's the way we've been.
Mm-hmm. And just to add a little bit about how we decided to become more professional. I mean, any organization goes through life stages, so to speak. And as Dave said, we've had a few grants to help us look at where are we in the evolution of a nonprofit. And we did a strategic planning process funded by the Hartford Foundation. And it was through that process that we agreed that we wanted to become a more professional organization. As you noted in your opening remarks, we're all volunteers, and aside from the board members who are all volunteers, we have a small army of other wonderful volunteers for whom we're very grateful in town. But when you have a board who's doing every bit of hands-on work,
exactly, it's sort of what I've tried to indicate.
Run, you start to realize, well, is this sustainable? We need a more permanent professional approach. And so I'm thrilled to have Missy here because, as the development chair who's writing all the grants and doing a lot of fundraising and marketing and all of that sort of stuff, we're going to have more help as Missy grows into this job to manage the social media and do the grant writing and that sort of thing. And that's where we all as a board recognized we needed to move to, because all of us doing that in our spare time was tough, was difficult.
I'm dying to meet Missy, but let me clarify one thing. So the organization that runs the Performing Arts Center is a nonprofit.
Right.
501c3.
The land is owned by the town.
Correct.
But the town has nothing to do with the running of it now.
Right. We pay them rent. And so like any renter, we're responsible for maintaining the property and managing
paying
what
the
goes
light
on
bills.
there.
Paying the light bills, paying the water bills.
Yeah.
The town does maintain the property. They do the painting like you would if you
Capitals, major
because they own
improvements.
it.
Right.
Because
they
they
actually own the band shell.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And one of our objectives is to build and to raise money for capital improvements to the facility. And those then become the property of the town.
Right.
And perhaps that's a little confusing to people,
Okay,
but
so let's hold off. Maybe we'll get to that later. But I want people to get to meet Missy. I've already had the pleasure of hearing about your experience, but I want you to tell our audience a little bit about what your professional background is and why you think they hired you, and maybe they can then chime in too.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, let me just say I have been so excited to have this opportunity. These lovely folks have been nothing but kind to me. Everyone in town has been nothing but kind to me, so I'm really looking forward to the opportunity. I started right out of college working at the Bushnell Center for the Performing Arts. They took a chance on a young college grad. I took over management of the front of house operations there, all the people who would greet and seat you if you come to a performance. And I did that for about 9 years and really grew the position. I am the type of manager where I would never say no if someone asked me to do something. And that's really how I built my work and built my experience. So in starting, just managing all of those folks who greet and seat you, and then growing the position into a more operational position. I developed the Bushnell's Patron Feedback Program so that if people had positive feedback, negative feedback, what have you, I would actually kind of be the person that they would speak to, the voice of the Bushnell, to make sure that whether they had a good experience or bad one, the next time they came, it was outstanding. Because to me, as a customer service professional, it's really important not only to meet people's needs, but to exceed kind of their expectations. And that's really the approach I've always taken in my work and in life in general. So in doing that, I had my first daughter. I have a daughter, Sophia, who is going to be 6 in April. And when I had her, I kind of felt like I needed a change. I'd really worked in front of house for 9 years and wanted the opportunity to do something a little different because I felt like things were getting a little stagnant. So when I came back after maternity leave, our volunteer manager announced that she was going to be retiring. So I said, let's see if I can stay with the Bushnell, but maybe impact another department. So I was afforded the opportunity to take over that role. and I adopted our 700 or so Bushnell volunteers, totally changed everything in terms of our communication to electronic, scheduling, et cetera. Really put kind of the volunteer experience in the hand of the volunteer more so than it had been. And in doing so, I was able to also connect our volunteers better with our front of house staff. So with that happening, I was given the opportunity to oversee both departments and really kind of grow that relationship. And most recently, at the tail end of my Bushnell career, I actually began working in facility management and operations, security, public safety. And then having done that, I thought to myself, the Bushnell is a wonderful organization, but at a certain point, sometimes you plateau in an organization. So I began looking for more opportunities and was afforded the opportunity most recently to join the Schubert Theater in New Haven as their director of operations, where I oversaw everything that I oversaw at the Bushnell, as well as backstage production, facility and vendor management, and facility rentals. I advanced all the shows production-wise. So I've had really an opportunity to expand my experience across almost all facets of performing arts and entertainment management. So I think it really set me up to work with these fine folks. And actually, a little tidbit, when I worked at the Bushnell, they brought the Hartford Symphony brought the Bushnell in to do some management work for them. So I oversaw all of the front of house management and management of the HSO volunteer program out here for the Talcott Mountain series. So I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of the fine people that I'm going to see again this summer, which I'm really looking forward to.
So I have plenty of questions to ask, but I want to take a step back. So I saw in a press release that you interviewed 100 people, and is that true? That you interviewed?
No.
That's what it said in the press release.
That would be a sign of poor management.
Maybe you got 100 resumes.
We had 100 resumes.
Okay. So did I misread that? Maybe. Okay.
We'd still be going.
Right.
I bet. So I must have misread that. So you got 100 resumes. How many people did you interview?
We interviewed 6 or 7 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my guess is that Missy rose to the top?
Absolutely.
Missy came out on the top.
Yeah. So one of the things you talked about, Missy, was your experience with volunteers and changing everything at the Bushnell. The performing arts concerts depend a lot on volunteers, so I'm sure that's one of the things that attracted you guys. So do you anticipate changing things, how things are done? What do you have in mind?
You know, one of the things that I think is most important is really taking a step back and looking at what is the volunteer experience. Because a lot of people who volunteer, maybe they're doing it young and in high school and they're just looking for an opportunity to broaden their experience. Maybe they're a retiree and they're kind of really looking into that self-actualization phase of life to say, okay, how can I give back? What can I contribute? So I think you have to take a step back and look at the volunteer experience. So I want to take a look at kind of why people do what they do in the areas that they volunteer. And then I would like to move forward and really get to meet all of our volunteers, talk to them about what's their vision for our Performing Arts Center, because what people forget is that volunteers are donors. So they're some of our most important constituents, and it's going to be critical for us to continue to build that relationship with our volunteers in order to then go out and really focus on development and all of that. Because I think you can't speak to your sponsors, you can't speak to people who want to donate money to your facility if you can't show that you have strong support for the organization and its mission, its initiatives, its programming, etc. So I want to use our volunteers not only to my advantage, but also, make sure that we're providing them the experience that they expect to have, because that's the only way that we're going to keep going.
Linda's nodding her head. I've seen her volunteer folding tables and chairs, hardworking. Are you, I think I heard you mention something maybe in an earlier conversation that you might reach out of the Simsbury community for more volunteers?
Yeah, I absolutely would love to. I think recruitment's critical. Obviously, I have some great connections out in the Hartford area and made some great connections with our volunteers. In fact, many of the Hartford Symphony volunteers kind of overlapped with Bushnell volunteers. And I feel like if we can get people from the greater Hartford community, wider reach in the Farmington Valley. That's more people we have on our side to really talk about the venue. Because yes, it's very community driven, but in order to continue to provide the community programming that the town wants, we're going to have to bring in some people from outside and, build our revenue and all of that.
So that's actually one of the things that at some point I wanted to talk about today, is that I think that while it's well known, the venue is well known in Simsbury, I'm not sure that it's that well known, and that we've been able to get enough sort of attention from the greater world. Is that something you're going to be involved in, publicity and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and actually, I have a meeting at the end of the week with a friend of mine who's kind of a social media guru, because I think that that's going to be a key component to us really reaching out. I know when you and I met, we talked about the Flea and Smorgasbord, which is our first event of the season on April 28th. But what Tammy Braz has done in her social media outreach to get people from outside of Simsbury to come into Simsbury is, as you described it when we met, kind of a phenomenon.
Yeah, so I went to the very first one. I hadn't heard one word about it in Simsbury, and something else was going on, and I saw all these people
Thousands
down there.
of people.
I said, what are they doing there? And then I went and interviewed people, because I'm on the tourism committee, and I'm always interested in what brought people here. And they said social media. There were people from all over the state and even beyond, vendors and people who had come, and they were thrilled with the turnout. But that was Tammy, and that was social media.
Yeah.
So you can see why we selected her and why we realized we needed to have somebody help us do this stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I frankly admire what the board has done. I know how hard you've worked, and I think the people of Simsbury really owe you a debt of gratitude. You guys work extraordinarily hard, and I'm thrilled that you have someone now to help you. Because that you could not maintain that level of hard work on just as board members. So I maybe jump. So let me ask another question. The idea of working with promoters and bringing events here, is that something else you're going to be doing, or is that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and lucky for me, I've made a good number of industry contacts. So what I'm going to be doing is reaching out to those folks, engaging them, familiarizing them with the venue, talking a little bit about how can we think out of the box. Because right now, we've had premier concerts. That was primarily our number one promoter that would bring concerts in addition to the Hartford Symphony Orchestra. But how do we think outside of the box and really focus on, are we adding more community events as well? Because it's not just about the commercial events. Yes, they help sustain us. But I think it's important to really pick up on that community engagement piece, whether it's movies or, things where families can come out and enjoy the venue. And not just Simsbury families, maybe Greater Hartford families. I've also looked at kind of the young professional market, because I think that's really an undertapped community for us. So what I'd like to do, I'm a member of HYPE. My goal is to really work with those folks, think about what can we do to bring some of the HYPE events out here.
That's Hartford Young Professionals.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
What's the E stand for? I forget.
Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs.
Yes. So they do a lot of different events kind of throughout the Hartford region. And I think that we have a unique opportunity, just having someone set foot in the venue. I know it happened for me when I worked the Talcott Mountain Series. It is an incredible venue. It's a gem. And I think we need more people to know that.
And I just want to pick up on the community point that you're making. We did do, before Missy got here several months ago, we did a sort of public input forum. And that was some of the feedback that we got from folks in town. We publicized it in advance. We invited people to come and we did a sort of structured focus group kind of event, and people told us they wanted to see more community, or not necessarily the huge concerts, although those are very important for us because that helps us.
Money.
We have to have enough revenue to stay alive.
Right.
But that local folks wanted some more local things too. So we, in our strategic planning process, took that feedback in and tried to build that into our plans for going forward. So that's part of what we're hoping Missy will help us with as well.
So you just raised an issue about the sort of the community, larger events and smaller events. I sense that there is some tension on the part of some people in town who are not crazy about the larger events, but you do have to have them because you have to make money,
there are
right?
quite a few people who
Love them.
love them. So
Far in excess of the few
you
who
might
don't.
have-
Right, yeah, but it's the usual people who
Right.
complain.
you have a few complaints about things, but in general, we've controlled the noise. We set a standard of 85 dB, and that's pretty reasonable control.
Decibels.
And the traffic, if we keep the attendance under 10,000, we had 8,000 people for Tedeschi trucks. The police cleared the parking in 20 minutes. So I don't think people had a big issue with that. So we do need to control it, but we also need it for the revenue.
Yes, we could talk about parking a little too if you want. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who aren't aware that there's parking on site. So how do people access that? So if you could explain it, because there are people who don't know. I didn't know until I came by accident with somebody who did know.
The premium parking costs money, and we charge for that. You can buy a parking pass with your HSO, Talcott Mountain Music Festival tickets through the HSO, or you can drive in off Iron Horse Boulevard and pay at the door and park in the back. That's right next to the stage, and those lots are convenient for people who want to park in a premium place. On Iron Horse Boulevard, we have hundreds and hundreds of parking places that are free, so that I think we have a good mix of free and premium parking.
My absolute favorite place is Henry James, and taking the shuttle bus.
Right.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing better.
Right.
The bus is there, it leaves, they have sort of priority of getting through, and it is so easy.
And it drops you off very close. And I've never taken it because I'm always there
Right.
putting chairs and tables up. But but I understand it's wheelchair accessible as well.
Yeah, and it's just an amazing service, and I think it's underused. A lot of people don't know about it. I mean, it's it's my preferred way of going. I'm sure I missed something, but let me jump. You talk about chairs. That reminded me that you had a chair fundraiser going on. I want to know what that was and what happened to it, and then I think you have a new one. So tell me about the chairs.
We rent a lot of the stuff that we need, from sound towers to tables and chairs, and it seemed to us that we were spending a lot of money renting things that maybe we could save money in the long run. Sometimes you have to spend a little money up front. So we did a fundraiser to raise the capital in order to be able to buy enough chairs that we wouldn't have to rent them, at least for most of the concerts. So for basically all of the concerts that we do with HSO, we now have 1,300 chairs, and that's always enough. If we're doing stadium seating, like for Tedeschi trucks, we still have to rent a few chairs, but it does save us money, which is a good thing. The way that we raised the money was we gave people the opportunity to make a donation of $100, and in exchange we put a permanent plaque, is not quite the right word, but sticker. It's a very sturdy sticker on the back of a chair with their name and whatever they wanted to say on it. And so we've completed that fundraiser. So now we're actually raising money to build a ticket booth. And that will, if people recall, we've always rented, I think, a quite ugly trailer to serve as our ticket booth in the past. And we want to make it look better and be more functional. So we will be building a new ticket booth in April and May. We have the construction plans completed and approved, and we have a builder. And so we're just finalizing stuff and waiting for winter to end and raising the money in order to build that. And we're primarily looking for corporate donations right now to finalize the funding for that. And we will have a plaque recognizing those donors. But we also will be building a brick walkway to the ticket booth. And much like the veterans did, we're doing a brick sale so that individual donors at a more affordable level can afford to donate $125 to buy a normal size brick with their name on it, or $175 for a double size brick. And that will help to pay for the walkway and also just support the Performing Arts Center in general. So we'll be starting to do some marketing on that fundraising program shortly.
Now, is the ticket booth going to be in the same place, sort of accessible?
No, actually it's going to be over closer to the playground, right up almost against there's parking spots there now, and it'll be up sort of by the bike path over towards the playground.
Do you find that, yes, I'm sorry,
You
go
can
ahead.
walk up to it from the Iron Horse Boulevard.
Right. And
Yeah,
it'll be wheelchair accessible
Right.
also.
I found a lot of people didn't even know that there was a place to buy tickets
Right.
there. Yeah.
And it will have greater capacity. Last year for the Tedeschi Trucks concert, we had the good fortune of fabulous weather. So there were hordes of people who showed up on the day of the concert to buy tickets, and there was a long line because there just wasn't enough capacity
Right.
at that
Right, because there's only
trailer.
one or two people in there.
And
It's
so
very
now
small.
we'll have 4 ticket windows plus a wheelchair accessible and will
And a will call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot more capacity and therefore shorter lines. So that'll be good.
Would you believe we have only a minute left? Is there something you want to add before we have to finish this
Always goes
conversation?
fast.
Went fast, yeah. Anything you want to add, Dave?
No, I think it's just fantastic that we've got Missy here, and we encourage everybody to help and support her and
keep the music playing.
keep the music playing.
Absolutely.
Missy?
And stop in and say hi. I'm down in the Performing Arts Center office most days, so I welcome any community members who want to stop by and see me. I've had some stop by and visit already, and I love talking to people and hearing what their vision is for the center, because we want to make it perfect for everyone.
Great, that's fabulous. Thank you all for
Thank you.
coming. I am so appreciative that you came and got to clarify some things for the town and got to meet Missy. I want to thank the people at SCTV who helped us get us on the air, and special thanks to our volunteer cameraman, who is not really a cameraman, but he's working behind the scenes, Sam Davidson. And finally, thank you for joining us. If you missed any portion of the show, you always can find it on our website at simsburytv.org. And just a reminder, in case you didn't know, SCTV is now available on even more channels on Comcast. Now Public Channel 5 is also on Channel 1084. Channel 96 also appears on 1090, and Channel 95 can also be seen on 1070. And of course, we're still available on Frontier and on Channel 99. So I'm Dominique Avery. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time on the Talk of Simsbury.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.